In the living room, the voice clock sang, "Tick-tock, 7 o'clock, time to get up, 7 o'clock," as if it were afraid that nobody would. The morning house lay empty. The clock ticked on, repeating and repeating its sounds into the emptiness. 7-9, breakfast time, 7-9. In the kitchen, the breakfast stove gave a hissing sigh and ejected from its warm interior 8 pieces of perfectly browned toast, 8 eggs sunny side up, 16 slices of bacon, 2 coffees, and 2 cool glasses of milk. Today is August 4th, 2026. That is the day that Ray Bradbury's There Will Come Soft Rains takes place. Well, the first day it takes place. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Ben Avery. This is Strangers and Aliens. It's a podcast and a video feed or whatever you want to call it, YouTube, whatever. It's a thing where we talk about that connection point, that nexus, if you would, between Christianity and creativity, between faith and fantasy, and between spirituality and science fiction. And today is August 4th, 2026, the day that There Will Come Soft Rains, depending on the version you read, takes place. And I was excited because this is one of the few times where a date like this comes up and I didn't find out about it after the fact. I actually had time to put something together when I realized this is the day. Now, I didn't realize it because I had it memorized and seared in my memory or anything like that. I realized it because I saw some things post about it over the weekend. And so I'm like, oh, hey, I should do something. And so I am. There Will Come Soft Rains is a story. It's not the first Ray Bradbury story that I came into contact with, but it's one of them. And it is definitely one of them that really did sear into my brain who Ray Bradbury was. And the first one was that I was aware of him anyway was The Electronic Grandmother. I can't remember if that was the title of it, but that was the name of a movie that we had rented. And then I also knew of him from some Twilight Zone, and my dad had read and recommended that I read Fahrenheit 451, and he told me about that. And so Ray Bradbury was already someone, even when I was younger, that I was kind of aware of. But junior year, I'm pretty sure it was junior year English class, I believe, in my hazy memory, I believe that Mr. Kurtz was my English teacher that year, and it stuck with me. I loved it. And then over the years, of course, I've come across it in different places. It's actually from 2 different things. It was published in not the same month, but in 2 different months in 1950, but just a space of a couple days separated them. It was published in Collier's weekly magazine in a slightly different form, and then it was published in the Martian Chronicles, and it was just a few days in between when the magazine hit and when the book hit. Their differences, one of the big differences is that actually it took place in April of 1985 in the Collier's weekly version, which, I obviously missed that window for podcasting about the story on that date. I would have been 11 years old, and obviously podcasting wasn't a thing. So anyway, so there's some differences, and I did read both today. So there's not just the difference in date. That's the biggest, most important one, especially when you're talking about why are we recording about this story right now today. But Collier's Weekly magazine was just a regular magazine, and this was after that time. I talked about this when I was talking about the Green Hills of Earth and how Robert Heinlein kind of opened the doors for some science fiction writers to be able to break into the glossies, the regular magazines. And Ray Bradbury was one of those writers who was able to do crossover between science fiction, pulps, and all that into regular magazines, and actually to enjoy a success that went beyond just the genre ghetto that you would consider, the science fiction writers to be in. And so he had the opportunity to do a lot more with his writing and go on to do things like have a TV show based on just him and his stories. And he wrote crime fiction, and I mean he wrote all sorts of things. And so yeah, but we're here to talk about There Will Come Soft Rains. Now, There Will Come Soft Rains is an interesting story too, because there are no human protagonists in the story at all. There's actually no characters in the story. The story is not pushed forward by the choices of characters. You're not watching a character arc develop. You're not watching a character make choices that make you wonder, oh, is he going to succeed in what he wants or not succeed in what he wants? And this kind of breaks down that whole idea that I've once talked about, where I said there's only, stories can be distilled down to one sentence. Somebody wanted something, something got in the way. Well, this is a story that does not have that in it, because this is a story that takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting. This is the last house in the town or in the city after an atomic explosion, and the house is automated, and the computer, the robot, the AI that controls the house continues with its day-to-day tasks. And so it starts out, as I was reading, it starts out making breakfast for the family that's never going to eat it. Then it cleans up the breakfast table for the family. And it's, making announcements about things that have to happen, and it's this time or it's that time. And I don't want to get into all the details of the plot, because I do think that there is potentially value to go back and, read it. I think you should read this story, even if it's not August 4th, 2026. Because there is a poignancy to Ray Bradbury's writing. Now, when I read Ray Bradbury, one of the things I say about him is he is the master of melancholy macabre. And I believe that he is just a poetic writer who tells just some very... the stories themselves they have twists, they're imaginative, but then he also writes them in such a way that is, like I said, very, very poetic, very evocative. He describes scenes and takes you to places that I believe sometimes he takes you there because he is there. He's been there. And when he's writing about his childhood in his hometown, he's also a very nostalgic writer. And so this is it's interesting, because when he described this story in the Martian Chronicles, he said this is the only story in that whole book that is actually science fiction. The rest he would consider fantasy. And I would potentially agree with that assessment. Now, the reason it's in Martian Chronicles is because this is describing what's happened to Earth as humanity has reached out to Mars. And the Martian Chronicles takes place over a number of years. And each story, then he has a date assigned to the story. And the first story in the cycle, just cycle of stories rather than a novel, but he's kind of taken them together, and it forms a narrative of humanity. January 1999 is Rocket Summer. That's the first story, and then it takes you all the way through past August of 2026 into the final story, which is called The Million Year Picnic, and that is in October of 2026. And so they did do a version of this where they reprinted the stories, and then they added 30 years, because I think it was in the 80s when they printed that version. And they added 30 years to kind of push it out into the future a little bit more. Obviously, you have to push it out a lot more, because clearly we have reached August 4th, 2026. Now, the story does take you into August 5th, 2026. So if you were to not read this story until tomorrow, you still have time to read it in a timely manner. But yeah, I adore The Martian Chronicles as a book. It's one of my favorite books. It's up there probably in my top 5 favorite books of all time. And I appreciate it because of just all the different stories and the way he kind of creates this narrative of storytelling of, again, reaching out to Mars and settling in on Mars, but then it's also very much about imperialism. It's very much about colonialism. It's very much about one group coming in as another group fades away, and then it's also in some ways about just two groups fading away. And so back on Earth, in the midst of all the Martian exploration and the humans on Mars, on Earth, nuclear war has happened. Now, we have outlived his dire prediction of nuclear war by August of 2026. Congratulations, us. Nice job, humanity. Is also one of the things I found interesting about this is based on a poem by Sarah Teasdale. And the poem is actually in the text of the story, and it's reprinted by permission. And it's interesting because the poem and the story obviously are very much thematically linked. Although, well, I'll go ahead and read the poem. Sarah Teasdale's There Will Come Soft Rains. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire, and not one will know of the war. Not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. And she wrote that during the Spanish flu and World War I. Now, what I find interesting thematically about her poem is basically you have the universe will go on after the war. The universe will go on after man, after humanity. In Bradbury, we have the technology will go on after the war, after mankind, for a bit, and then the universe will go on after that because of what you see in the story, what happens in the story. But so it's interesting though that he read that poem. Now I didn't see anything where he talked about the poem specifically. Obviously, the poem is definitely an inspiration for him. But another inspiration for him was visiting Hiroshima and seeing the silhouettes of people on the side of a house. The other thing interesting about the story to me is that as a writer, it's interesting to me because it kind of breaks the rules of narrative in some ways, or it breaks the rules of successful narrative anyway. There's no human protagonist. There's no characters who are making choices based on their character arc to push forward the plot. The protagonist, if there is one, you could make the case that it's the automated house, but it's a soulless, robotic computer AI that is just doing the tasks that were programmed into it. It's more about environment, and it's describing environment, and basically it has you kind of walking through the house as time passes over the course of this day, August 4th, 2026. And so it's environment and the passage of time rather than character and character arc that are pushing things forward. And so I find that interesting. It does kind of, in some ways, gives permission. Hey, break those rules when you need to break those rules and not tell a story that does the exact thing that you're supposed to do. Sometimes maybe it's okay to, put Chekhov's gun on the wall and leave it there, or, that kind of a thing, where it gives permission to kind of break those rules. But this is him as a storyteller. It's I think one of his best works. It's a great story. It is one of the best stories in science fiction. I put it up there with The Green Hills of Earth, which I've mentioned before as being, I think, one of the greatest short stories of science fiction ever written. I believe this goes up there as well. I would have a very hard time ranking things. Green Hills of Earth goes up there for me. It would always probably be number one. This would be in top 10 for sure, maybe top 5 of top 5 science fiction stories that I've read. So anyway, yeah, it's August 4th, 2026. Ray Bradbury made a prediction that a science fiction prediction that didn't come true. And the other thing is, obviously, this thematically doesn't align with my Christian beliefs about humanity's place in the universe and our future as a planet. Because we look forward to, the second coming of Christ. We look forward to the new heaven, the new earth, and all that. But as a story, it is poignant, and as a story, it is poetic, and as a story, it's melancholy macabre, is what it is. So, have you read There Will Come Soft Rains? Do you like There Will Come Soft Rains? I would love to hear from you and hear what you have to say about it. Please leave a comment below. Am I overselling it? Am I underselling it? Like I said, there's a nostalgia for me in reading it, but there is also, I believe, a high level of skill and art and craft that he put into building that story out. And I will say there are some questions like, there's still eggs? There's still bacon? Like, where's that stuff coming from in this ruined town? There's still power. There's some questions that every time I have read it or listened to it, because it was made into Dimension X and X-1 old time radio. Leonard Nimoy did a reading of it that is actually pretty good that I've listened to. Of course, it's Leonard Nimoy. Anything he reads is going to be pretty good. But anyway, those are the kind of things you do need to say to yourself. It's just a show. I should really just relax. Thanks for listening. Thanks for spending time with me. And until next time, Godspeed.